Hi, Robert. I'm Wende, Millicent. I hope you're all well. Read the I, meeting notes. Good. Okay, so we wanted to start at half of the hour. It's 8:30 now. I believe it's a good time to start because I know there are many competing priorities that we would like to get ourselves going this weekend, but it's really nice to see people leaning in to come and share their experiences, learn, take away new insights, new experiences from what we're going to share from this topic. I'd like us to begin. Before I introduce myself, who would like to pray for us? Anyone who would like to pray? Any taker? Okay, so let's pray. Dear Lord, we come in front of you this morning with thanksgiving in our hearts. God, we thank you for the gift of life and giving us a brand new day. As we gather around the table to learn this topic of performance management, we ask you, Lord, that you go ahead of us, you give us clarity, you give us wisdom, and whatever new insights that we'll take, we'll be able to apply it in the marketplace, at our places of work, our businesses, and in the larger society. We thank you, everybody who's able to join and the people who will join so that we can move ahead together. We thank you for the opportunity to learn and to meet each other. In Jesus' holy name we pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Great. So my name is Catherine Wamwangi. I'll be your facilitator for this session, for this morning. And I'm very excited to be here. I'm a HR practitioner and also an executive coach. So I coach at various levels. I'm also very passionate about facilitating training. I work very closely with ACHRP, and I'm always thankful for the opportunity to come and facilitate training. So that's about me, and we hope that we can all participate so that it's not only me talking all the time, but we can have a drawing in terms of sharing your experiences, asking questions that you may have, so that we go out being able to know that we spend our 3 hours in a very good way, and we feel that we are ready for the week to come in terms of performing and doing things that are different at our workplace. So allow me to ask if we have any expectations when you joined this meeting. What were your thoughts, your insights? What do you hope to take away from this meeting? Anyone? Any insights that you'd like to take away? I saw very good course outline in terms of link between HR and competencies and recruitment, competencies and performance management. We look at talent management and also how culture is shaped around performance and competency. So I think that's really nice in terms of what we want to draw out. So I'll have a hard stop at 11, and I've already requested for that. But when we think about performance, let me display my screen and let me know if you can see it. Can you see my screen? Sure. Share screen. Come through. Anybody who can see my screen?
Yes, visible.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Am I audible enough? Audible enough?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay. Just okay. Okay. So competency-based performance management. What we all know and understand is that everything rises and falls on leadership. And what does that mean? When we think about leaders who lead teams in various spaces and in various categories, we always think of maybe the top management. Indeed, that could be true. But I like to emphasize that everybody is a leader in their own right. You have to make decisions as a person, and those decisions will determine how best you're going to move around fulfilling your dreams, your desires, your aspirations, your goals, your objectives, what you set out to do in every given season. You might have goals for the whole year. You might break them down to every quarter. Now we're already in the third quarter of the year, and we keep thinking, how are we refining those goals, or what's going around it? And when everybody is a leader in their own right, because you have to make those decisions, then you might have the opportunity and the privilege of leading teams. And what will you do where in those circumstances? You will want to see optimal performance from them. And there'll be ways and times when there'll be a hard stop in terms of, let's evaluate the performance. How are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing at every given time? Are you being challenged enough? Are you understanding what needs to be done? Are we on the right framework in terms of moving together so that we can forge the common bond in terms of meeting the strategies of the organization and the objectives that have been set? So when you look at performance management, it's actually the glue that holds everything together. Performance management frameworks or tools or the systems that we use will encompass everything else that we do. We think that we want to give compensation that is commensurate to what people do, and affordability at the same time. We will want to see where the gaps are and how do we develop people within those gaps. We'll also want to see how people are relating with each other, employee relations, how do we handle grievances? How do we handle disciplinary issues? How are we making sure that people are complementing and collaborating with each other in that facet of employee relations? We'll also want to look at how now the performance is actually measured and rewarded in an organization. While at it, what plays a central role is also the culture and the values that we hold dear in our organization. So that's important, and it's a key driver to good performance or sustaining and accelerating performance to the next level. Of course, what I have said around encompassing it and reinforcing it with all these other things is important and necessary. And when you have outlined very articulately what needs to be done, then you have a better opportunity to look at a performance-based management. And that's what we'll be speaking at and looking at today in a way that is refreshing, a way that you can take new things or new insights to your workplaces. I would request that we all try and unmute our mics and participate so that we all go out feeling that it was worth it. Feel free to weigh in at any time. You can raise your hand. You can interject so that we have good opportunity to get to hear from all of us. So competency. What's competency? Performance management. Many a times is when we think that performance management is the appraisal that we normally are subjected to at the end of the year, or at different companies will have different times to appraise. Some will do the appraisals twice a year, some will do quarterly, just depends on how far and how much you value evaluating your employees. But performance management is wide and it's big. And the appraisal system is just a subset of performance management. So we want to see how competency-based performance management is the ideal structure in terms of meeting those the hard objectives that have been set. While at it, we also must remember that one of the things that is now very common and has been embraced by many organizations is feedback, continuous feedback from time to time. If we are looking at really having a vibrant performance management framework culture in your organization, then continuous feedback cannot be underrated. We need to have those conversations. Some could be hard conversations. Some could be, well, you're doing very well, continue doing what you need to do. But we need to be fearless and brave coming back to how we manage people, and also soliciting for feedback. two-way. How am I doing as an employee? How do you see me? How do I plug in, and how am I being seen? How is my work being evaluated on a daily basis? And also the leaders being vulnerable enough to come and say, I would like feedback, and really honest feedback in how I'm doing. So then by the time we are coming to evaluate on pen and paper, then it's really easy. We are just coming to say, we've been having these conversations. We know where we are at every objective, and we are happy to go. So that's the course outline that I have actually read just before when I was making the introduction. So we will have a good run on that. So we'd like to define competency. And maybe before I define competency, maybe I could ask, what do people think about competency? We hear skills, we hear attributes, we hear all these kind of things. Anyone who would like to try? There's no right or wrong. We're all here. If I put all our years of work experience, I know we'll get hundreds of years. Anyone who'd like to attempt? What's a competency? We have competency gaps. We hear those conversations all the time at work. Anyone who'd like to attempt? Feel free. Thank you for saying good morning. I can put it on the chat. So let's look at what competency is. So competency can be defined as a class of highly interrelated personal attributes. Attributes, the inherent characteristics of a person, which includes knowledge, skills, and abilities, KSA, that give rise to the behaviors needed to perform a given job effectively. Okay, competencies are a person's capability to perform the knowledge, skills, and attitude which get reflected through a person's behavior in the form of actions, thoughts, feelings, and finally manifests itself in outputs, which are products and the services that they are expected to deliver. Competencies are measurable, observable, especially observable, and critical to individual as well as to the organization's performance. And when you think about the competencies of the organization, which are the core competencies that are required for every job? And as you rise up the ladder in terms of picking up senior positions, the more competencies that will be required from you. So can we learn competencies? Yes or no? Are competencies learned, or are they the inherent behaviors and characteristics that we are born with? Someone, if we went on a debate, anyone would like to unmute themselves and say? Anyone? See, we're all here. Anyone would like to say? So while the inherent characteristics and personality of people, one of the things is that our socialization and our desire to become better human beings, some of the competencies that you don't have, you will have to acquire and learn them. If what are the attributes, of how you do things, and what led you to be that kind of a person. Of course, your genetic predisposition of how you were born, then the socialization, how the kind of experiences that you have undergone, primary school, secondary school, if you went to university or college, your first jobs, your interaction, various circumstances in life could bring out some characteristics that you never thought you would be in that situation and stuff like that. So the competencies required for each job will be outlined in an organization. And if you don't have those competencies, then it is the organization responsibility to make sure that you acquire those competencies, because they will be needed in terms of you doing the job, the knowledge that you will acquire, the skills that you will acquire, and your abilities to be able to do that. Ability to be a good negotiator, ability to pay attention to details, all those, knowledge is the one that you go and I have knowledge in HR systems and operations. You went to school, you acquired that knowledge. New knowledge every day. There's new knowledge to be acquired and to be learned. So there are many ways of learning. The internet has all free, a lot of free information. You can choose to have a coach or a mentor. You can gain knowledge from your own reading, or you're going to school and stuff like that. So that knowledge that you acquire for a certain field or a certain career, nobody can remove it from you. You already got it, and the skills now you come. How do you gain the skills? It is through the experience of coming to use this, the knowledge that you have. You become better at it. You have gained good skills in recruitment because I have learned the theory, then I'm going to apply it at the place of work, and you become very good at recruitment. It becomes a no-brainer. I'm very good at compensation and benefits. I enjoy training because it's one of the things that, so people will say, acquire the skill. If you do it over and over and over again, you become better at it and you become good at it and you enjoy doing it. So you can see how it all goes. And then your ability. What are your God-given abilities and what do you know that you do without a flash of an eye? You are and the basic principles of us living in this world about respect, being kind, being honest. Those are universal accepted behaviors and characteristics that should be borne by everybody. But there are other abilities that you have. You're a resilient person. I'm very resilient at what I do. You'll hear people say that. I have mastered the ability to be patient within my work and the people that I interact with. And you ask, were you not patient before? I say, yes, I was a very impatient person. But now looking at what I need to deliver and I need to be successful through people, it meant that I need to tone down my impatience so that I can be able to deliver. So when you think about recruitment, and given the opportunity that I'm sure that all of you recruit, it is important for us to know that competencies is a cluster of highly interpersonal attributes. Those attributes, what are the attributes? What are your attributes? And you can be able to name them. And then they include all these other things that you've been able to master over time and gain over time. That is what we have said: knowledge, skills, and your abilities to be able to do things and perform your job effectively. So the second, if I unpack the second paragraph, competencies are a person's capability in the form of knowledge, skills, and attitude, reflected through a person's behavior, very observable. You observe people's behavior, you see how they interact with each other. And that's when, people are called out and say, how you're doing things here is not going well, or how you do things is very admirable. Let's always start with the positives of how it is, and people will come and say, we've observed you and we are very happy with your work, how you interact with each other and stuff like that. And sometimes you'll be called out because of bad behavior does not reflect our values and the culture that we have in the organization. So that all, as you do it, is the outcome of the products that you're supposed to produce and the services that you're supposed to provide. So they're very measurable, and sometimes we shy away from putting KPIs around competencies because they are behaviors and attributes, and sometimes we do not know how to measure them. But today we will look at some of those things that we can measure around competency. So it's crucial for us to know about competence. Okay. If there's any question, feel free to unmute and weigh in. So when you look at performance, what is performance? When we think, oh, you're a good performer, you really know how to do things, and we feel that your capability is exemplary. So performance is deliberate and purposeful action or a set of actions that an individual takes in order to achieve a desired result or output of some kind that has got value to the individual. Performance. You will see the athletes who go to compete at various sports competition. They always want to improve their time, and that's also what we should be chasing as HR practitioners. I'm assuming that majority of us are, that we always want to improve performance. Performance can be improved in all aspects of life. But let's take an easy one like the people who run long distance races, the marathoners. You will see they're always trying to beat their time, or even short races, the sprints, and they're always trying to say, I want to improve my time. So that's performance. Deliberate and purposeful action, or set of actions. The action is running. I want to make sure that I beat my last record. So improve that performance. It translates to the same at the workplace. Performance. What do we need to do? What's our primary business that we are pushing? And how do we outperform our competition or our comparators? How do we outperform them? So internally, we start with our own. Our primary business is selling water, or let's even say in this case, selling trainings like what ACHRP does. So that is the action that needs to be done. And then how do we want to make sure that we are best at what we do? That performance that comes behind our primary business. We want to get better at it. And how do we measure it? Measuring it is the KPIs that you have put for yourselves as a business. You might want to say that as a business this year, we want to grow by 20%, or we want to grow by 30%. Or performance means we also want to increase our workforce by X number of people. So because we understand our business, and you go out and do that. Then another way of gauging your performance is looking at what competitor is doing. If you are in the same industry, what is competition doing? How come they are ahead of us in this quarter? How come they are always able to innovate? And look at the performance. So you come back internally and say, how can we do better compared to competition? Then performance, now competency coming on the other side. Competency can be thought as the tools that an individual uses for successful or exemplary or best-in-class performance. So you'll need competencies to perform. And you see how seamless they just gel into each other. Is always called a competent performer and not vice versa, not a performer competent. So you're a competent performer because then you've been able to understand what you need. Remember the knowledge, the skills, and the attributes, observable behavior. Then you look at you're a competent performer. And we are happy that you've been able to exemplify that, and you can go over and you're beyond your call of duty, and people are happy to be able to be associated with you. Is that okay? So, okay, let's move on. So definition of performance management, where I said this is where I really love, because then you will see how competencies now come into performance management. Performance management is defined as a strategic and integrated approach to delivering sustained success to organizations by improving performance of people at work who work in them, and by developing the capabilities of teams and individual contributors. You see, by now, we've not even introduced tools to evaluate this performance. We say that it's a strategic and integrated approach. All things that we do in the organization, we integrate them into delivering and sustaining success to the organization. So we work there and we develop people's capabilities and teams as individual contributors. So there's now the need for organizations to be very bespoke around individuals, not HR. We've got 10 people in the HR department. They all need training in performance management, for example. No. Well and good for technical courses to be offered by organizations so that everybody understands how to do the business. Fair enough. But now what we need to focus on is individual trainings that really speak to getting the competencies needed for the person to do the job. So for example, if my job as Catherine, it needs me to be a good negotiator, then I need to be helped to becoming a good negotiator through training, through examples, through given opportunities to negotiate and people to see how I am behaving around that competency of negotiation, being a good negotiator, and giving me the ability to try without fear. And when I fail, I can come back and say, well, I didn't do too well. Let's try it again. So what we are focusing right now is very bespoke way of managing people in an organization. We understand that we could be many, and how do we do that? You know, if you have a workforce of 10,000 people, you know, then you might ask, Catherine, so how do we bespoke everybody? 10,000 people. It's still possible because you're having conversations and feedback sessions with every individual. Every individual is managed by someone. And if the span of control we say is not more than 10, then the manager has the opportunity to look at each individual and say, how do we develop you within our performance management framework? And what will lead up to that? Better motivated workforce, a better productive workforce, people who are able to be self-driven. So you can see how the need for looking at everybody's competencies and capability and improving them in that area will just accelerate learning in the organization, performance in the organization, and long-term commitment in your workforce. Okay. Anybody who would like to weigh in on what we are saying? How do you define performance management at your place of work? Anyone would like to support this bespoke way of doing things instead of just one shoe fits all? Jane, Sharon, Millicent, I'm just reading from my names of list people who have attended. Mary, Gloria, Joy, Rosemary, Alice, anything you'd like to weigh in? Feel free.
If I can say something.
Yes, you do.
Okay, for us, I think performance management, it's not, we don't do it like it's in a periodical way. It's more of constant follow-up, appraisals, that is, maybe after every 3 months, more so for the newcomers who are coming in. And if we see like there's a weakness in someone, now we lay eyes on him, or I try and be constant on their case in terms of performance, that is talking to their manager and being able to observe how they're doing their work. So for us, it's more of constant and not something that we wait for a period of time for us to just appraise someone. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Lorna, for just reaffirming that you are doing very constant reviews and looking at some of the areas of improvement for people, especially people who join the organization. They could be on probation, but during that probation period, let's make sure that we are really observing how they do their work, how they are able to deliver, and if there are any gaps, then we start facilitating the needed interventions for them to be able to perform. So Lorna, just to ask a question. So is the periodic quarterly reviews very well documented, or it's just conversations and we move along?
No, we have a performance system that we usually do, and it is done in a quarterly manner, so everything is documented.
Okay,
Yes.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So that's good. Anybody else who's doing things differently, conversations, even if it's once a year, or you're not even doing it? We all know that everybody is able to perform. So we give them a free fall, and at the end of the year, we also give them a big bonus. Anyone? Working in a vacuum. Okay. An important aspect of performance management is performance appraisal, like what we have just said, the conversation with Lorna, where a clear set of quantifiable goals and objectives are used to measure an individual's performance against this goal. Very popular, very well referenced by organization. Organizations use different types of tools. Some people will use the balance scorecard. Some people will use the SAP. Some people will use management by objectives. So whatever tool you use, as long as you're able to set very clear, quantifiable goals and objectives. Performance management must be formulated in accordance with criteria linked to work objectives and to quantifiable and qualitative and qualitative individual characteristics, which are included in the performance methods. So this is where I pause and say, so qualitative and quantitative. So if we are going to observe people and we are going to rate people using our values, because then that is where our competencies will also lie and our culture will also be built from that. So how do you measure? How do you make sure? Because these are where the rubber meets the road. Because people always say, well, how am I going to say that you're a person of integrity? That one of our values is being customer focused. And how do I measure that? Because progressively that needs to be measured. Because that is where everything starts. The hard targets of turnaround time in recruitment, what metrics you're using, those are easy. Sales, you're supposed to increase your sales by 10%. Easy. It doesn't meet, numbers don't lie. But in terms of the soft skills, which I read the other day that we should not call them soft skills because they're the heart of the business. They're the drivers. How do we measure them? How can we measure them? In a very objective manner.
Maybe to respond to that one.
Yes.
And I think there are things that you can measure by using tools, and there are things that you can measure by observation. For example, if you want to measure punctuality, I think that when you don't need a tool, you need to observe and staff and arriving to duty on time. Are they on, if the company uses uniform, are they on uniform during let's say Monday or Friday, when according to the company's policy? Yeah, I think you can separate. One, you can use tools, the other you can observe.
That's true, and that's why we go back. Thank you. Your name is Tick, correct? So correct. We call you correct now.
Thank you, Khalif.
Absolutely correct. So we very observable, because behaviors are observable, but we still need to rate them. And what can we do? Like we can observe other ways that you are doing in your organization. Anybody else? Observable behaviors.
I think, can I answer?
Yes, Jen.
This is Jane. There's also defining what positive behaviors look like and what negative behaviors look like, so that is very clear. So we're not having a gray zone. And therefore, when you're saying that somebody has performed and is demonstrating customer service, they are exhibiting X number positive behaviors that go towards that. Over.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Jane, and thank you, correct, because you've actually hit the nail on the head. Observable and being very deliberate in terms of articulating and writing down, this is the correct behavior. This is not what is expected for you in this competency or in this value. So one of the things that we have failed to do, and I keep saying this all the time, it's almost starting to sound like a broken record, is to outline behaviors along our values. if we have not defined, we know we've come up with superb values that talk about, that also mirror the kind of business that we are in. Healthcare, maybe one of your values will be empathy or compassion or whatever it is. But how does compassion look like? Unpack it. What kind of behaviors are expected under compassion or integrity or customer focus or creativity, all those nice values that we have come up with. But we must go further down and define and put behaviors that are supposed to be, people are supposed to follow within those behaviors. If we have not done that, then we will not be able to fully and objectively measure those behaviors. Another way we can use is use your peers, and let them give feedback about your behaviors and your actions, and that doesn't call for any malice. You're very, it's like, do they? Yes, all the time, always, having a rating in terms of how does this person perform. And if you have like 5 people, your supervisor, your peers, your juniors, let's say 3 or 4 people doing that, then when you look at the results of what they have said, then if it's objective, then you will be able to know whether you are living that behavior. Then you can be rated against that in an objective way, or you will need to improve that behavior or competency that needs to be done. Okay, so there are ways that we can do that. And I keep on saying that your competencies must be the ones on top of your appraisal tools. Must, because they're the drivers of your business. Then all these other objectives, which you can really measure between 1 and 10, or the results to be seen, they can follow. But it's inverted right now, is that we look at the hard tasks. This is what it is, because that's the traditional way of doing it. We are not saying it is not right. It is absolutely correct, but we need to step back and say, what is critical and important in our business? Because if performance management is what is going to get us to the next level, after we have defined and understood it, then you will see that really we must look at our competencies as the core driver of our organization performance. Okay, thank you for that. Performance management must be formulated in accordance with criteria linked to work objectives and to quantitative and qualitative individual characteristics, which are included in the appraisal method. So that's what we have actually said. Anybody else who would like to say something as we move along? So we have a competency HR management framework, and easy if you would like to take it away, and or if you have one in your organization, you can see whether it's the same. They take almost the same, similar fashion. They might just be worded differently, but same context and meaning. Your framework tool might look different from the one that we're about to discuss now. So, but we must have a management framework based on competency or competencies, because if we don't have that, then we'll just be crookling in the mud. This we know, we have an idea, we understand, but we're not able to fully feel what it is. That we know, we understand, but we don't know how it is, has to end from today, because we must do much better compared to what we are doing and moving forward. And I'm not saying it is broken. We just want to be more focused around an organization that wants to move to the next level in terms of using competencies to be able to evaluate how they are doing. So link between HR and competencies, we see that there's the business strategy. What's a business strategy? Business strategy? Business strategy? That's what it is. Just want to have people to unmute. And business strategy. As I read the charter, good morning, Catherine, please give an example of behavior, for example, of transparency and accountability. Okay, we'll take that from plenary. That's a very good question. So business strategy is your overall primary business and how you want to execute it. Most organizations will have a 5-year strategy that is evaluated from time to time. So what is our strength as a business? What are some of our weaknesses, and what are some of the things that we need to do better and some of the things that we need to drop? So if, let's say, you're in the health sector, providing goods and services would be the platform that you sit on. So your business strategy. If you're in consulting for maybe HR or something like that, what is your business strategy? What area do you want to focus on? Is it training? Is it OD? Is it, what else, other things do they say? Audits and stuff like that. So what is your main business strategy that informs what you do? And of course, from that, it means that also you have the strength and the capability for you to be able to do it. If you don't have, then you might fail. You might also come and say, well, I can bring in experts to come and do it if that's really the passion that you want to follow. That's true enough. So you have a good strategy that everybody is understands. But remember, before the strategy, what comes along? If you are a mature organization, you're also looking at your culture. How is your culture performing? What do we need to do? What do we need to continue doing? And because we say that a culture will eat strategy for lunch, breakfast, and dinner all the time, it will be eaten all the time. If you've got a good strategy but a broken culture, then you're almost setting yourself up for failure. So that should always come first. But now we are looking at the hard stuff moving forward. So some of your competency framework should be informed by the kind of things that are important from a HR perspective. And we look at recruitment and selection, and we look at them in detail. Your training and development, like what I had said, your performance management tools and frameworks that you'll be using, the reward management that you're using. So as you can see and appreciate that this competency is people-based strategy, it's all about people. The functions, in fact, if anything you would want to say, is the functions of HR. From your business strategy, you're supposed to now develop your HR strategy using the objectives of the business strategy for you to be able to inform how you will support the business using your HR strategy. How about just bringing in this framework, competency framework, for you to be able to inform the business strategy, because it will be the functions of HR where we sit, and you'll be able to just go in and say, I know, I've got it right. I am the one in the driver's seat. Then after that, when you do that, you really get the required business results. So the competency framework will be a basis for all the HR functions, as we have seen, as to serve the linkage between individual performance and business results. If really you are treating me well, I understand what is required of me. You create an environment for me to be able to thrive. You are giving me feedback. You are complimenting my work. You are picking out errors which I'm making and asking me to get better at it. And you are challenging me to get better at it. I'm a happy employee. Well, at it, you make the best effort to compensate for my skills, knowledge, and attitudes in a competitive way, in a competitive manner. You know, sometimes you can be a 25th percentile company and people still want to stay with you. Why is that so? You're not the top tier paying person, but people want to stay with you. Why is that so? Why do people stay? Why do you stay in your job? Mm-hmm. Hello, Catherine.
I think people stay because they have a balance. They feel, at the end of the day, despite all the competencies, experiences, and paperwork, there is feeling needed and loved and fitting into an environment. When with all your papers, you just don't feel the organization, you will not stay because you don't have the joy of staying in that environment. So it's a soft skill issue that brings up every other aspect of who we are as people.
Mm. Yeah. People stay because they want to stay. That's the basis of it. And my wanting to stay is informed by many things, like Catherine has said. I feel needed. I feel people appreciate me. In fact, the key word here is appreciation, that people value what I bring to the table. And I feel that genuine appreciation in this organization. People want to feel accommodated. There's this saying, we say it so many times nowadays. People want to feel. I remember it before. So that's why people stay. And of course, people also leave jobs not because of the organization, but because of their line managers. That is true. So we can put all these things together. But if we don't have a thriving culture where people feel that really this culture resonates with my personal values and goals, people will always be leaving. So it's important at the recruitment and selection stage that we make sure that we are bringing in the right people to be able to run our business. So this competency framework that we've been talking about, that is important for you to be able to do these things, really need to be thought through for you to be able to succeed. Okay. Let's back to the question on our chat. Behaviors. What kind of behaviors can we model around transparency and integrity? Behaviors that we can write down and we can be able to measure. Let's engage, please. Behaviors, examples of behaviors around transparency and accountability. Catherine, any behavior you would like to outline that can be measurable? Or Joyce? Catherine, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the behaviors we need to be seen to implement what we state we are going to do, and be seen to be doing it. Some people have this mentality of silos. Like, as long as the reports have been given and you have provided to whoever you send for, you might not even understand the report. I think 5 or 6 hours after that, you've already moved on to the following month. So the very fact that we implement and we even listen to people, give them an opportunity to make good what their suggestions are, then we will be a leader. Because then you can't just be a leader without listening to the next set of leaders that you are growing. One of the behaviors is growing people, grow other people, that can fit into a role, and keep looking at their competencies so that people fit where they are best celebrated, rather than the Peter principle, where you put people where they are incompetent. The Peter principle is practiced by most HRs. When they want you out, they will put you where they know you are ill prepared for that. So if we can be people who are looking at strengths, because we employ people because of strengths, as a leader, as a HR leader, you look at those competencies of people and you celebrate them when they get milestones. You practice that behavior of that rewarding aspect. I think that is one of the things that is not so much practiced, but that's a behavior that can go a long way. Yeah.
Sorry, everybody, my internet dropped. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry about that. Just the one day that you pray that nothing goes wrong. Let me share my screen. Apologies for that. We were talking about behaviors that we would like to see around our accountability and transparency. Anybody else who would like to share? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
It can also be how well do our processes and policies being followed in the company. I believe each and every department has their own way of doing things, and overall now the HR manual, how well is it being followed? And the whole issue of creating such is to create some kind of accountability to each and every department and each and every employee in the company. So how the processes are being followed, how the policies are being also followed in the company.
Yeah, thank you. That's very good in terms of behaviors around following through to be doing. But if you are people handles money, counted no gap around great. You can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Someone please tell me whether they can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at the other strategic competency-based system in a very nice framework in terms of the strategic needs and context. We'll outline them, and then the organizational performance and how we get to organizational excellence. So when you look at it from a strategic point of view, because we also want to make sure that we are strategic in nature, how we make sure that we are looking at how the business is done from a strategic point of view. And we have outlined what strategy is. It's your primary business. And what do you need? What pillars do you need to put in your strategy for you to be able to execute that? That's the same that goes to the previous that I had, where we had shown the management framework. So in this one, we are saying that we are moving from that framework to putting the strategy in place for us to have a HR system that really speaks to the needs of the organization. So one of them is we look at various aspects, the strategic alignment and coherent, and then the competency management. In that, we are looking at people in terms of training, how we outlining their performance management through management of performance. We're also looking at career management and reward, because people need to be rewarded as when they do a good job. So in that, we need to make sure that we understand our mission, we understand our vision and the values and the strategic objectives, which come from our core pillars that are outlined in our strategy. And then from there, when we look at the value chain of the functions of HR, we'll be able to look at the roles of the HR manager. So you as a person, because you have outlined your HR strategy, you will be expected to unpack it in a way that the business feels that is getting value from the HR. So you need to plan HR planning in terms of selection and recruitment, or recruitment and selection, whichever you like best. The competency development, what we are talking about today, through the training and the gaps which have been picked during the training. Then you will look at organizational, individual, and the organization. So me as an individual, and that's why we said, how are you outlining for me my objectives, and how are they fitting in the larger scheme of the organization? I worked in an organization where they abolished individual targets. You had them somewhere behind the corner, and they just say that we want to see how teams work and collaborate. So one of their big values was collaboration, and they felt that if teams and everybody works together, we will get better outcomes of the business. And indeed, because then the pot for bonus was actually two-faced, meeting the organizational targets and meeting the department's targets. So you can imagine, if you want to share in that pot of bonus, what happened? Everybody worked towards meeting the department's objectives. Didn't we work hard and smart? While I teach, play hard and work hard and play hard as well. Then it informed, if your department is doing well and it's being able to look at meets its objectives. So it really worked. Then you might ask me, so where were people? How was I going to be remunerated on merit? So there was now looking at how you have contributed. What is your role and what contribution do you make into the department's goals? So it was very, people thought, well, that people are going to hide behind others because there are people who work hard, who work smart in organizations, but we just saw as part of the department got the overall bonus of each sessions. People asking, how am I doing? I don't feel comfortable. I don't have the competence. Can someone really help me? And there was a lot of coaching going on internally from the managers, knew and understood what coaching is all about, but also external coaches doing very well. And then we've got career development, people move, rotation, all those things that we want to do for people. And then reward, direct and indirect in terms of intrinsic reward and people feeling that they're happy. This is an ideal situation of an organization that is doing well and would like to be known that they are doing well. Any question? They come through the information of policies and the legal frameworks. Any question? Am I clear? Hi, Dan.
Hi, Catherine.
Oh, my presentation is not there. Okay, I'm struggling with internet. It just went off. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It's just that we can't, your screen is lost.
Yeah, let me put back my screen. Is it there now? Is it
Yes,
there
yes,
now?
it's back. Yes.
Yes.
Good. Yes. So this is what the heart of the matter. Yes, good. I'm happy. I'm struggling with the internet, but we hope that it's going to remain stable. So what we have seen there is the competency systems that drive employee performance. And we have looked at we have talked about recruitment, performance appraisals, training and developing people, and finally compensation. And as HR practitioners, you can so relate, and I can see you smiling behind the screens and saying, this is what it is. But how do you make sure that the competencies required from each and every person, the values of the organization, can relate to recruitment, to performance appraisal, to training and development, developing people's careers, and within compensation? So let's look at them in details as we go along. What is recruitment and why do we recruit?
Before you continue, Madam Catherine,
yeah.
What's the difference between human resource managers and people and culture managers?
Good question. The human resource managers and people and culture managers. Anybody who would like to answer that question? Anyone who would like to answer that question?
This is Jane. I think there should be a real distinct difference, but I think what people have done is that they've just, should I say, bandikaed the new name people onto a human resource manager without any changes. Over.
In my mind, there is no sense. Differentiation will call the people in. Sorry, Jen, I lost you there. That people have done what? Jen, please unmute again. Jen, are you there? So what I was saying is that some people, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that I think there should be a distinct difference, but it's just renaming the same position, the same name. If we're serious, the culture pit should be very serious, but it's just an interchange of names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you have said, because then HR could be an implementer of culture. They are not the ones responsible for culture in the organization. If you ask me, and we've had that debate many times around CEOs roundtables, boards roundtables, within our own HR circles, and I'm sure you've had that, is that culture is driven from the top. You know, so if you give me a title that people and culture manager, then you are telling me that I need to push the culture. We are not saying that HR does not involve itself in culture. It does, actually, very heavily, setting programs and making sure that we are living that culture through, employing people that fit into our culture and stuff like that, because it's very driven. But if you ask me about culture, then it's driven from the top, and that's where it should actually sit. And then it cascades down to everybody, and then it comes bottom up, and it's the wheel that actually drives the business. If we lose that plot, then whatever. But all these names that we give, big names, small names, whatever it is, if you're if you're a HR expert, then you are required to really do the meaningful work of HR, and that is really supporting people to grow in the organization, recognizing talent for what it is, and making sure that you're unpacking and looking at every individual and providing technical assistance to line managers for them to be able to provide HR services to their people. So that's how it is. So whichever name you take, but when we have an aspect of culture in your job title, then you need to really look at driving it as much as possible. Thank you for that question. So let's look at this, the various systems around competency systems, recruitment, performance appraisal, and stuff like that. Many people enjoy recruitment, and some people will say, I can smell a good candidate 10 miles away with their presence, with how they presented themselves. Again, we always say you don't have a second chance to make an impression. So recruitment competency-based interviews reduce the risk of making a costly hiring mistake and increase the likelihood of identifying and selecting the right people for the right job. Competency-based recruitment is a process of recruitment based on the ability of candidates to produce an account of their professional experience, which can be used as evidence that the candidate has a given competence. So how do you do that? We've actually moved to competency-based recruitment. Anyone who'd like to give an example or to let us know how they recruit in the organization? What do you actually look out for as much as possible? Well, let's say we hire for attitude, and then it's a 90% attitude, 10% skill. A good attitude, and it's demonstrated through the kind of questions that you ask, giving really experiences. How do you experience this? How would you do this? How do you behave in a certain given aspect, to see the reasoning capacity of the individual or the candidate, and also digging deep in terms of their attributes, their values, their beliefs, their tradition, what has informed them to pick up this career, what informs them to take certain decisions within the business. So it's it's looking at the core of the person. You could be very good, but you don't have the core competencies for us to be able to feel that you will fit in our organization. So asking questions that are really purposeful and meaningful to that job, and looking at whether they have those competencies. Good communication skills, a great negotiator, someone who pays attention to details, someone who is able to look at customers from a different perspective and understand customers. So you create questions, or you develop questions around that, those competencies that are required for that job. And one of the things that is people keep asking is that, so how do I develop competencies for each job? The primary competencies are easy to relate with. You will say, I want someone with a diploma, a higher diploma, a degree, a master's, whatever it is. I want someone with certification, if it's a CPAK, or if it's a lawyer, they've gone to law school, and someone who has a valid license to practice. If it's HR, they have they are CHRK or CHRP, or you can be able to define the primary factors. This person must have had 7 years of progressive work experience. If it's in the same industry, the better. You get what I mean? But then how do we now come? We've now been able to understand the primary competencies for that job, academic. But then how do we identify competencies for each job? If we're able to answer that, then we can as well close this seminar, this workshop, by the way, because that's what we want to get today. How do you know how to develop competencies for each job? Let's try based on what we have discussed. Anyone who'd like to try? It's key that we try and unpack that, because then it's where the struggle is. Catherine, Jane, Sharon, sometimes I just pick on the people who have spoken. How do you think we develop competencies for each position? Competencies for each position. So it could be informed by many things. Informed by your values, informed by competition, informed by industry standards, and informed by that career. So what are the key competencies for a HR manager? Competencies for a HR manager? These are easy so that we go to the next framework of appraisals. Competencies of a HR manager. You can put in your competency framework. Someone who is able to, a good communicator, someone who is able to be use diplomacy and tact given any given time. If you say an emotional intelligence, then you have to unpack that, because that's a big monster. And then someone who is a good negotiator, someone who is able to be empathetic, someone who's able to be an independent thinker, so those competencies must fall in your HR manager's position as you develop that. Okay, so inform from various aspects. Sorry. So the next one is performance management, where we have actually alluded to the fact that so a competency-based approach to recruitment and selection to staff can help an organization to make it an effective and successful investment of all time, money, and expertise. Such an approach will help to ensure that the organization is clear regarding the competencies and skill sets required for the job. The selection process encourages a good fit between individuals and their jobs. Managers and staff have the required skills and competencies. We go on to say that individual skills and abilities are matched to the requirements of the job. Evaluation of work demands and staffing are accurate. So when we look at the third bullet, individual skills and abilities are matched to the requirements of the job, so that when we are recruiting, we make sure that the skills that individual should have and abilities, they truly have them. If they don't have them, let's say they've been promoted to that position, then we have an opportunity to make sure that we are supporting them in making that happen. So building those skills and competencies for a person, very observable. And some people struggle in getting some certain competencies because their inherent capabilities is not what it is. Then we're able to take that into consideration. And then going on to say is performance appraisal. Integrating competencies within the performance management processes supports the provision of feedback and employees not only on what and they have accomplished, that is performance goals, but also on how to work, how the work was performed using competencies by providing feedback. Performance appraisals. And many people don't like them, and I don't know why they don't like them. Why don't people like performance appraisals? Why don't people like performance appraisals? Well, it should be the most coveted thing. I am going for my appraisal this week. Guess what? I think I have performed well. I'll be able to do better. I'm looking forward to that conversation because they have been continuous feedback. But why do people shy away and shun performance appraisal, from line managers to the people who are being evaluated? Why is that so? Someone please unmute. Or we are all happy with performance appraisals? Let's try. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I think one reason is incompetence. Yeah, if you know that the real genuine reason is incompetence, this is where the rubber meets the road. So this is now for us to see your CV was worth what we gauged you for, and that implementation of who you are is seen through performance. A performance is a fruitage. It's not the gifting. The CV is a gifting. You know what you are competent in, what you say you are, you know, a PR document. But now performance is the fruitage. So because it is the fruitage, it is the msema kweli. So that is assuming that you are working in an organization that does not embrace politics of the day. So that is it. Another thing, it is also a tool that is used to settle scores. It's a tool that is used to settle scores. I don't know whether we've lost her again.
Yes, we've lost her, but I think you can continue.
Or you can hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Another thing I feel is that it is a tool that is used to settle scores. And because corruption exists and corruption is a system, like what I was talking about the Peter principle. The Peter principle is where you place people where their weaknesses are. That's one place that so many people use that tactic. And then I think, so wherever you are placed in an area of weakness, naturally it threatens your existence in that organization. So for purposes of understanding, someone can transfer you to a department that needs a person good in what you are weak in. And when the time for evaluation comes, naturally, fear will get you because you know you've struggled through milestones there, you've struggled through competency issues because it's not your strong points. And so we call that the Peter principle. You are put where you are really weak in. There is a Peter principle that can be used for purposes of growth, personal growth, that we feel you are so good at what you do, but because you lack this kind of competencies, we put you in the deep end, a bit like throwing you into the deep end because we think you are a smart person and you are able to figure out. There are people who survive it, but not so many. Some people actually give up with the organization. So I believe performance evaluation being a fruitage, being the gauge at which it's also a professional document that is used, it brings fear for places where there is a lot of corruption. So I think that's what I can share.
Okay, so I can also share.
Or someone else can share.
Okay, thanks. So my name is Judith Lunge, and I think people fear appraisals because they've not been brought to speed on what performance management is and the fact that it's a continuous process. An appraisal is a one-off event, but you find performance management is a continuous process. So if we embrace continuous conversation every week, check-ins, feedback sessions, you find that an employee will be so confident on where their gaps are, and those gaps in terms of competencies will be bridged so early such that there's no fear of appraisal. For example, if the appraisal is coming every quarter, every end of the quarter, or media and India, there will not be any fear because then it's been an ongoing conversation. So employees fear performance appraisal because the organization has not embraced a continuous conversation, check-in and feedback sessions that are open. And actually, once they receive that feedback, acting on it. For example, if an employee is weak in a certain area, it's actually up to the organization now to align them early, whether through coaching, mentorship, or training, or even reassignment of roles, instead of waiting for pay time during appraisal and tell you, you failed in this, you did not do that, you did not do that, you're incompetent. Yeah. So the other reason why employees fear appraisal is also because of poor placement, where probably they've not been placed in their areas of strengths or in the area where they can optimally perform. So you find then they will not perform, and hence they will be very, very scared of appraisal. Yeah. So where also appraisal is not objective in an organization, where the performance management is not an objective tool, then they will definitely fear it. Yeah. So those are my submissions. Thank you.
This is Jane. I'd just like to add my small view on the same. I also think that some performance management systems are so complicated and time consuming that it really bogs everybody down. So when you hear it's performance management time, everybody just looks at it as another bother, extra work, and therefore it's looked at as is a bothersome. Over.
Thank you. Maybe if I can just add, this is Mary. I believe if we do the management with the performance management correctly, the metrics that we have put in place and the tools, if we use them correctly, then the time of appraisal should not be cumbersome. It should be a time of it's like a report. It's just like a summary, because you've been like appraising this person for that set period from the start to the end. So at the end, you are just doing, like, maybe if you are using the scoring method, you are just scoring and saying this was your overall performance over this period of time. But you find that, like, there are some maybe managers who do not do it constantly. It's not a continuous exercise. So it becomes a lot of administration work for them at that point of now doing the actual appraisal. So probably maybe if we as HR can support the managers, the line managers, educate them, and so that they are able to do this on a continuous basis. So we don't have like there was a time when we were sharing experiences with other HR managers, and you hear stories like at the end, somebody bringing something that happened like 5 months ago into appraisal, and it's supposed to have been dealt with at that point. And if there's like an action to be put in place, then it should have been put in place and should have been actioned and the necessary support given. So I think for me, if we do it correctly, from the time we do the setting, it begins with the setting of the KPIs, the targets. If we set them correctly, we align them correctly on the business strategy, then that will not really be a lot of work towards the end of the process, which is appraisal. Over.
Maybe I could suggest that we probably look at recruitment also, which we had not exhausted as she comes back. Maybe we could share a few ideas.
Can't say how sorry and frustrated I am, but we've tried to sort it. I've gotten to a new network completely. My apologies for that. Share. Okay. So I think I am good to go now. Really apologies for that. Okay, hope you had a breather during that time. Catherine, the last time you were talking and then we got disconnected about why people don't like appraisals and what are some of the difficulties. You can unmute now and tell us.
Yeah, what we did is we used the principle of Baba while you are away.
Yeah.
And we continued to discussing it. So a few of us have looked at appraisal from the point of a continuous aspect and the appraisal as the end of process. So people shared, and maybe for purposes of just understanding for us, for me, I shared the political part of performance, you know, where it can be used as a performance appraisal can be used as a tool of damage for some people settling scores, like differences between very competent people and threats. And I probably pick this from recruitment, where you are told never to recruit someone who seems to be a threat or who can easily take your position. So if that, the onset of recruitment is like that, then it therefore means there are some people who are stifled. You know, their real worth is not seen through this tool of performance appraisal. And unlike the way you say, it should be a joyful time because your fruitage is supposed to be celebrated. But sometimes can lead you see people get out of those appraisal rooms and they have this Suraya Kazi kind of issue, like they are going to resign. You know, how could they do this? How could they say this? And so for me, that's what I shared, but other people maybe can unmute and also just give a brief of what they also shared.
Thank you. I'm sure. Thank you for making the session move on, as even I was trying to solve the issue. But I totally agree that without us having a real cordial and warm environment and a good culture that speaks into people's performance and reasons as to why is important, people will always go to be evaluated on their performance with cold feet. You know, how is it going to turn out? I don't have a good feeling for it. And people always do. They always feel like that, you know, I'm going to the slaughterhouse and this is not a place I would like to be. And the managers also struggle if you person who is vocal, pushes back within reason, then they wonder, how am I going to appraise this person? While I teach, people are always complaining. And one of the things about complaining is that they are not able to put it down and have that hard conversation. You are complaining throughout the year, this Catherine is not doing a good job. And at the end of the appraisal, what do you give? You give them brownie points, which nobody can ever think that was supposed to be done. So that is something that needs to be looked into and needs to be taken into consideration. So in terms of just making sure that can be done and that can be put aside, is to make sure that the competencies, again, look at how the bespoke purposes come in. Competencies that need to be done. I am strong in these competencies, and this is where I'm going to be evaluated on. And people always look at me as a person who's able to deliver. So it's not just your boss who knows that you can deliver, but also your teammates know that they can trust you to deliver the work that has been put in place. Okay, so thank you for that. So we go to the same one, competency systems driving employee performance. All businesses are based on some key competencies. the main reason for an organization to create a competency-based development system that focuses on having the right people with the right skills at the right time is that it helps in accomplishing business needs or business targets. Competencies are the need of the hour, and designing appropriate competency development models is a big necessity. So I see very good competencies in organizations. I mean, they have outlined them so articulately and in a way that everybody feels that they can be able to plug into those competencies. If it's the competencies of a driver, they've already been outlined. If it's a junior driver going to a senior driver, the competencies keep increasing. If the competencies of a HR assistant, a HR officer, some competencies will be added into that role, and the competencies of the head of department, maybe if it's a HR manager or director or a chief, whichever name you give them, they are also increased. So every position has a competence, and these competencies can also be from the fact that we need to drive the business. So remember the strategies of the business. The pillars that the strategy outlines will inform the competencies that are required in this organization. Then those competencies have already been outlined. And then now Catherine is employed as a driver in that company. During during the recruitment, as much as possible, we try to look at someone who is a good fit for that position with the ideal and correct competencies. But I might fall short of one. And you say they are real good fit. Let's bring them in. This one competence, we can work on it. That gap that Sharon was saying, during performance probation period, we are looking into those competencies and we develop people in those competencies. So everybody in the organization knows. Competencies are also a bridge to succession planning, are a big bridge to career development in an organization. The people who really have good way of developing people in an organization, knowing I'll come in as a cashier, I have the opportunity to end up as the CFO. You know, of course, you must make time. The CFO who's there is not moving anytime soon, but if there's a career progression that is very well outlined in the organization, then you can be able to grow those competencies. And I see some people clamoring for growth, and they say, I have been in this position for a couple of years. I know that there is no other position for me to move in my department because we are all there, we are all doing a good job, but start growing this competence. I'm short of this competence, make me ready. So there are some people who just lean in. And don't we love those kind of employees and who are hungry and they go out and do much more? And so you need to develop people so that they're also ready for the next big thing that is coming their way. So developing people and making sure that they are growing in their career is very well, they go in tandem with the strategy and the business of the organization. So what are some of the things that we can look at? Competencies contribute to understanding of what development really means, giving the individual the tools to take responsibilities for their own development. It also gives the line managers a tool to empower them to develop their people. Advantages of competency-based development: improves in productivity. We have said that. Performance and profitability. We are out to make a profit. Identify employees' capabilities for the organization future needs and analyzing capability gaps, just like what I have said. Any question there? Developing people, are you developing people based on the competencies that are required for that job? If you have outlined them and looking at now the individual and fitting them in that area. Compensation remains a big one in the competency system. Competency-based pay provides an incentive for employees to grow and enhance their capabilities. Competency-based pay fits this new environment. It provides an ongoing incentive for employees to enhance their abilities to perform their job. Catherine?
Yes, you asked whether there would be a question on developing people.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to just ask, you know, there are some people who take some certain professions from the perspective of what they studied, but it may not have been their passion, so to speak. And how does this play out? Because I have seen this, especially when we deal with interns or people like those that they are doing something their parents wanted them to do. And so you see, some people are A students. Yeah. So they will pass, they'll hack whatever comes to in terms of paperwork and all that kind of thing. But now when they come in there, you are developing a person who is already dead, you know, dead on arrival. And this is, they need to be in a morgue, but you've been given this person because they have a very good CV. So to develop this person, you reach a dead end because the person has no willingness in them. So I've looked at developing people from something that they have passion for what they are doing. I don't know what you would feel about that, because passion, I think, is an issue that also helps in developing people. If you have a candid communication process with them, and people come out with the truth, not ile ya tunafanya hii kazi kwa sababu hakuna kazi zingine, and this is where I got. If you really got a person wired for that job, then you are able to develop them. But if you get a person who has a very good CV, has worked in very good organization, but they really don't have a passion for that job, but it is the only job that is available, what would be your comment on that?
It's a good question. I'll also open up to plenary. My parents say that because I'm an A student, I should do medicine, while I wanted to do marketing. So I'm there in big hospitals, you know, while I'm clever, I did it, but I have no passion in it. Or I wanted, I'm a great musician, but my parents don't think that I can make a living out of music and producing music. They want me to get a white collar job. I was good at math, so I can do a bit of accounting and finance, and vice versa. And we see that a lot. How can we make sure that people are drawn into careers where they feel that this is where I'll excel, I have passion for it from the very beginning as you're planning your career? What can we do as recruiters to make sure that we are getting in the right people? And sometimes these people might just be brought to you. Good CV, indeed. I'm the business owner, pick them. They are A. But when they come, as Catherine has said, dead on arrival, no matter what they do, clever, but not fitting. What can we do as practitioners or as people who are going to help people shape their careers? I get that a lot in my coaching conversations. What can we do? Please unmute and give us your experiences. What have you done? What can you do? How can we help people? There's no right or wrong. Anyone would like to see it coming through? I think, Catherine, one of the things that I keep on saying is that let's identify people's strengths at a very young stage. When they go to secondary school, high school, when they go to university, start having those conversations. And unfortunately, our education system is not wired in a way that they are looking at people pursuing their passions, because it will be easier for them to plug into industries where they will be fully utilized and they feel happy about what they are doing as their long life career. So we've got a big gap in our education system from secondary to university. I think there's some work that has gone in over the last couple of years in identifying careers that are suitable for every individual, but more needs to be done. So anyway, because more needs to be done, we find ourselves with candidates who are good on paper, clever IQ, but low on emotional intelligence because they have pursued careers where they are not passionate about, and there's nothing they can do about it. First, we also must recognize that jobs in Kenya are few and far between, especially good jobs. You will see graduates doing manual work because then they've not gotten an opportunity to do what they have studied. So they take any job for them to be able to survive. Have you had this request all the time? Fix my daughter, fix my son, wherever, kazi tu yoyote. Wacha anzie mahali. First, we must appreciate that the jobs are few in this country. So anzie mahali, they will find their way in between. But we are talking about being given an opportunity now, but the person who has come is not capable of performing because they have no passion about it. Do you let them go? Do you let them stay? That's the elephant in the room. I think it's having a candid conversation with this candidate and find out why, what are the circumstances, what has led them to be where they are. And then with that candid conversation, both of you can make a decision as to, do you feel then you feel that you should be here? They might say no, and I will leave. They might say yes, because I have no other alternative, and this is me, you have to accept me. If they were being brought by a godfather, you are in for a long, bad ride. If they say yes, and I'm willing to look at things differently, then you have won their heart, because then they can start working and understanding this job while we are looking at opportunities internally and externally where they can go and excel. While at it, they can also follow their passion, because maybe they are earning some money, they can go back and learn that skill. You remember knowledge, skills, and attributes, then it takes a long time to be able to do that. And you will say, at the expense of the business. Yes, at the expense of the business, unfortunately. And these cases are many in the business. So there is no right or wrong. For me, is to have that meaningful engagement. And also, if they're already there, to see how we can soldier on without hemorrhaging the business. But as a recruiter, that's why I brought back this slide. You're not going to make sure that you are bringing in the right people, then the blame should be on you squarely. Squarely, the blame should be on you, where you've not been able to do what? You've not been able to recruit right. And now we emphasize there are tools which show the personality of this person, the strengths. You can do a lot of personality tests. They are good tools that you can use now. They are not too expensive either. You know, there are free ones on the website. They are not too, they are neither here, there. I don't think they can make, you can use them true, but sometimes I shy away in thinking that if they are free, so what next? So investing in your recruitment process is a big thing that every recruiter should know. It will cost money, especially in getting the right candidate and the tools that you might need to buy for you to be able to do it. Does that make sense, everybody? Catherine, does that kind of give you some resemblance of something?
Yes, it helps. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we talk about training-based, competency-based training, focuses on what the participant is expected to be able to do in the workplace, as opposed to just having theoretical knowledge. An important characteristic of competency-based training is that it focuses not only on the actual job that is required in the workplace, but also the ability to transfer and apply skills, knowledge, and attitudes to new situations and environments, isn't it? Where we have said, this is what you don't have the competency here. We are going to take you for training. We are going to support you. Then we are going to observe you at the workplace to be able to know that you are implementing the knowledge and the attitudes that you have learned in various situations and in the environment that you take. I keep saying training takes a big percentage of an organization's budgets, resources, and time. So let's do it right. And doing it right is what is the return on investment, because that is what we want to see. That return on investment in training is very observable, compared to looking at the bottom line, unfortunately, because we can see that there are less errors in someone's work. They are better at customer service, how they are serving customers. They are better in making their sales pitch. So over time, it translates to the bottom line. But training is very, very observable. The skills that you acquire need to be put into practice, and into practice means that now your performance is better. Remember the first slide where we outlined what performance is, exactly what you're supposed to be doing, the actions that you're supposed to be doing. And then after that, they are translated into actions over a long period of time in terms of the bottom line. So competency-based appraisal processes leads to effective identifying of training needs. You know, that the appraisal plays a big role in people able to see what needs to be done. It gives an opportunity to identify, develop specific training programs, which helps in a more focused training investment. Such a focused training enables improvement in specific technical and managerial competencies. The advantages of CBT are participants will achieve competencies required for performing their jobs, build confidence of participants as they succeed in mastering specific competencies, and participants receive a transcript or a list of the competencies they have achieved. Wanted to develop the competency of negotiations. You have gone for this training. We make a tick, but we also must see it, how it translates to the workplace. You know, so it's very, very, very methodical in terms of holding people accountable. And holding people accountable is during the performance appraisal conversation, saying, we feel that you lack this competence. You lack the competence of collaboration. You know, how are we going to help you collaborate better? Teamwork. We are going personal excellence, you know, confidence, presence, you know, all those, the competencies that are needed in a job, they can be learned, and we'll be able to take you for training. All businesses are based on some key competence. The main reason an organization to create a competency-based development system that focuses on having the right people with the right skills at the right time is that it helps to accomplish business targets. Competencies are the need of the hour. I think I had already done that. Had we already? Yeah. Have we already? Yeah, we've already done compensation. Where is it going? Okay. So, sorry, that was the last one in terms of compensation.
Sorry, just a point of noting. I think the compensation, we interrupted the compensation part.
So yes, we did. To go back to, yes, I remember now, to go back to the training, sorry, and I read back again. Compensation. How do you want to be compensated at your place of work? What makes you know that what I'm being compensated correctly for what I am worth? Anyone? Because people tell me, no, that's too little money. Please add me some more money. Even me, I go and negotiate. That's not a good package for me to be able to deliver this consultancy. I'll use all these man hours. I'll use my competencies. I'll work behind the desk to deliver good product, you know. So competency-based pay provides an incentive for employees to grow and enhance their capabilities. Competency-based pay fits this new environment. It provides ongoing incentive to employees to enhance their ability to perform their jobs. You know, so how do we come up with pay structures in our organization that really speaks to our affordability, our competition, the regulators, the market that we work in, and stuff like that? How do we can do a job evaluation for us to get a real scientific informed decision as to how to pay. But that's one market comparison is important because you're able also to defend in many aspects to the board, to the people you want to recruit, and to finance to justify budgets. But sometimes even when we go to the market, we still know that our affordability level is very low because of the kind of environment we are in. Maybe we are a startup business, so we are struggling, but we need good people. So how do we make sure that we are able not just to look at the traditional way of paying equal way for equal work, but not distorting the pay structures in the organization, is to look at the competencies required for each job. And competencies are required by this person who's coming with these competencies. We negotiate in a way that they feel that we are actually paying for your skills, not for what you are coming to do. Catherine, you've accepted this job. Well done. We are happy to have you on board. We want to pay you based on what you are bringing on board. It changed the whole narrative of your offer process. Trust me, it's, oh, this company pays 20,000 shillings for this, whatever. Catherine, we are happy to have you on board. Let's start the negotiation process. We are happy you're bringing these competency, skills, and knowledge in organization. And for that reason, we want to compensate you fairly. You have said 30,000. However, at this point, knowing what you will be bringing on board, we have 20,000. It changes. Trust me. To speak to the person abilities instead of this is what the company is able to offer. Because this person has agreed to come and work with you, and they will know that they are valued. Already you've started creating value and traction and interest in that candidate, you know. And if they say, well, how does it look like? Say, we'll walk the journey together as we build these competencies, competency-based pay, the other incentives and stuff like that. And someone starts mellowing instead of having a hard stand. So the narratives. Employees are rewarded with salary increase when they add new knowledge and skills, or when they have demonstrated higher competencies on existing capabilities, if it's possible. I don't know whether we have in this seminar someone who's working for the public service or the government, where it's, I love the government. Once I do, I achieve a certain competence academically, let's say the job requires me to have a degree. If I present my degree, I think I'm promoted automatically, or my pay grade is increased. The same for many organizations, not just Scholar, but if this job requires you to have a higher competence and you've been able to achieve it, then we want to pay for it. And we want to see how it is supporting the business to achieve its objectives. Advantages of competency-based or compensation are: provides a basis of deciding on the compensation, encourages employees to develop their competencies further, leads to focus on the totality of the job rather just what is achieved. This system fits every job in the organization, and every job in the organization is held by someone. So we might have a job of a driver, one job, but held by 5 people. You know, so we are developing, and because we want the same competencies, so there will be no nungunikaring on the coffee pot. Sasa XYZ ni dereva, lakini anapeo 50,000. Mimi napeo 30. Why? Because you've looked at all the competencies of a driver. You've addressed those competencies. So all the 5 drivers, as much as possible, should within the same range of pay. So there's no monitoring. And if they're not, you say you need to develop this competence for you to be able to get to that level of pay. So they will be more than willing to go out and develop those competencies. Any question? Feel free to put them on the chat as well. I'm happy to take them from the chat. Okay. So what's the importance of employee performance? Importance, all the things that we have mentioned. So performance, the actions that you do, the work that is been outlined for you, the duties and responsibilities, all are in the area of performance. So one, the importance of employee performance, to review the performance of the employee over a given period of time. You work, then you say, well, let's come and evaluate. To judge the gap between the actual and desired performance, isn't it? To help management in exercising organizational control. What does that mean? Anyone? Organizational control. Anyone who would like to see what it means by organizational control? So we know how many people in the organization, organizational development, what kind of people need to come into our organization, what kind of support that is needed to be given to the people in the organization, what are the external factors talking about our organization, and how do we organize our company to make sure that everything is fitting within our strategy or what is expected of us. So that is important for us to be able to do that. Helps to strengthen the relationship and communication. That's important between subordinates and management employees, to diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of the individual so as to identify the training and development of future needs. Take this. You can put it in your manual if all else, if you don't have, or you can improve your manual in terms of when people say, so what's the need of, what's the importance of employee performance? We've done all that, then we're able to see how it plugs in. We go on to say to provide feedback to employees regarding their past performance, to provide, Catherine, I'll come to you, to provide information to assist other personal decisions in the organization. There are many personal decisions that need to be taken for people in an organization. Think about people's wellness, think about people long-term goals and careers, people wanting to reinforce their social and economic status. So some of those things as a caring organization. Provide clarity of expectations and responsibilities of the functions to be performed by the employees, to reduce grievances of the employees, and to judge effectiveness of other HR functions in the organization, such as recruitment, selection, and training, amongst others. Yes, Catherine.
Yeah, just to bring this aspect, outsourcing some functions. Yeah. You outsource some functions like recruitment, and should really the outsourcing organization, when it takes up the job, because people just operate on plug and play. Yani today, Catherine is now the consultant we are using. You don't even know our needs, but we know you are competent. So maybe the job we are bringing on board is so technical. Say, for instance, like if you are looking at the pharmaceutical industry, the kind of people that are in the organogram are very specialized people. So I'm looking at this topic of competency-based systems, the HR system. And I'm seeing probably this is the only way that a system that completely outsources the HR has to leave a HR of their own in the system. Because that is the only person who will be able to tell them the truth based on what you are teaching us. But you see now, if you are the one who is outsourced and you are the one bringing people in, you'd want those people, you'll be spending time making sure that you are fitting them to the organization. And sometimes some of these people are incompetent. Now look at the case for compensation, for instance. Maybe you are a consultant in the market and you're probably aware that this 1.5 business of housing levy has just brought, people no longer want employees, they want HR firms to take over the employees. So basically what are they doing? They are pushing the 1.5% to you. That walipie, sisi hatulipi. Because again, when you look at EPZs, you'll be talking about 10,000 employees, 15, 20,000 employees. And just the decision of the finance bill pushed a lot of EPZs to Tanzania. And the president of Tanzania was like, she was waiting at the border, like kujeni tu, this is where the hospital issue is, leave Kenya, is become expensive. And so we've lost a lot of EPZ business as a result of the 1.5. So what I'm asking here is, should there be a case for this to work very, very well, that you cannot completely, even if you are outsourcing the whole of the HR system, for competency-based structure, you have to leave a person after your own interest within the organization so that they speak well of it? Or should you hire a consultant separately from and keep a HR partner, a business partner, so that they are able to look which fit is the best? Because again, you see that the same HR organization is fighting itself. You see, like if you are hiring a BPO, business process outsourcing, and a HR is put there, they are out to make sure that you don't make sense to the whole system, yet you may be a good fit for them. So what would be your advice in that particular respect?
Well, consultants are out to also fill their pipeline with work and make sure that they can put food on the table. Any organization that makes a decision or chooses to outsource their key asset is ill-informed. Take that to the bank, all of us here, and we can debate it, and we will see the demerits of outsourcing your key asset, which are the human capital, the people. And it doesn't call for any, in terms of saving money, it doesn't augur well. Having a HR person who's very passionate about their work, understanding the business, putting in the right processes, and really making sure that the management or the board understands the issues of people in the organization, you can sleep easy. Any head CEO should be able to have their HR as their best friend seated. This office, the next one is for HR, because that is where it all starts. It's people who make businesses successful. It's not outsourcing, it's not their machine, it's not the automation. Of course, all these things leverage and bring efficiencies to the business, but not having someone who is advocating for HR issues. And I'm talking about really advocating is in terms of bringing in people's competencies and looking at everybody as an individual. You will not be succeeding. I know many businesses which have outsourced the HR function in terms of creating payroll and stuff like that. But there is need for a HR person to be in-house, employed by the business, not seconded by the business to work there. It's very important for us to have that, because then you understand some of these very progressive things that if you come to this seminar, like today, our competence is right in the organization. You'd want to go and check so that they're able to feed back into the organization. And if they don't know how to do it, they can be empowered through training and seminars like this one to be able to do that. So and then the macro and the micro economics come into play. So that's a big monster, Catherine, that if the government has decided to increase taxes, which has demotivated many people, what do we do? What do we learn out of it? It's very difficult right now convincing employees to stay as employees. Some people have also come and said, I want to be a consultant where I don't have to pay all this. And some of them are your critical heads, where you say this person is very important to the business, but they're asking for other terms and conditions. I would like us to just open up to plenary around this issue of how do we keep motivating employees, and how do we make sure that they are capable of doing what needs to be done in the context of competency-based frameworks and systems vis-a-vis what is happening currently. Anyone who'd like to weigh in? Please try and weigh in. It's important that we do, so that we move on around compensation, which is now the key hot thing. Anyone, please? Someone? Sharon, Jane, Robert, correct? Anyone would like to weigh in? So let's move on, the interest of time, but I believe that we can continue on plenary. So what is assessed in a performance management system? And that is what we have discussed. So we'll have objectives, the real key objectives, we'll have competencies, and we will have behaviors and values, that we can be able to do that. So, and I'm sure even when I look at many performance management tools, I will have things around, I'll see things around hard objectives, example sales of X amount within 6 months at a specific average margin, loss of time, injury, or something like that. Then we look at the skills, the components that are required, can be technical competencies for the job, specific managerial competencies such as leadership, flexibility, achievement of motivation, and communication skills, the competencies that are required. Then within these competencies, we will be able to bring in the behaviors or the values of the organization, basically how a business in organization components. Examples, importance of teamwork, like what someone asked, what are some of the behaviors that we can look around transparency and accountability, demand for integrity, requirements for innovation. And so all these three really come into place. And we are also able to do what? We're able to measure them very critically because we are able to observe, we're able to peer each other, we're able to measure in terms of the real objectives that you are expected to deliver. So we go on to say that competency for improving employees' performance, competencies refer to skills and knowledge that leads to superior performance. Competencies are individual abilities or characteristics that are key to effectiveness in work. Competencies are not fixed and can usually be developed with effort and with support. Anybody can develop those competencies that we have seen and we have been talking about. Competency is when a person is qualified to perform the required standards of the processes of the job. Fair enough, you can have a degree, you have the knowledge, but you need to develop the skills, and you need to develop the skills through experience. So even when you come with a first-class degree from the best university in the world, you still need to come and learn to acquire competencies, the skills that are required for that job. Competencies, on the other hand, mean the condition or states of being competent. I'm a competent performer, like we said from the beginning, for you to be able to do that. Competencies for superior employee performance. Some of the examples, now we meet the examples of competencies required by an employee are things around adaptability, commitment to work, ability to work independently, yet you're collaborating with others. You don't have to be supervised. Supervision is different from micromanaging. You have foresight, you are thinking ahead, you are emotionally intelligent, you have emotional, you can be able to design. If you know that you're an impatient person and this situation feels as if I can become impatient, I know my emotional state, and you take a different approach. You can say, let's take time out, or allow me to think through it, or you pass on the mic to someone else for you as you think through, so that you don't display your impatience, and maybe you don't make decisions that are not welcome by other people. Motivation, creativity, analytical reasoning, leadership, and communication skills. These are very common competencies that are required by employees. Okay. So competencies are affecting performance. The key ones that we have been talking about from the very beginning: the skills that you need, the knowledge that you come with, the self-concept, and we will look at each in details, the traits and the motives. Okay, let's look at each in details. Feel free to tell me what you see and what you know about this. Anyone? Someone read the skill and try and outline it. Catherine, you can see the slide. Maybe just sometimes I like to nudge that read and just see what you would think about it?
Yeah, so I can read. The skill is the ability to perform a certain physical or mental task. So maybe for putting in a word on the issue is the actual technical, the technical ability to perform something. Like if you are an engineer, you are an engineer. This requires engineering, analytical skills. So you are able to do it, and even your mental framework is able to look at the problem and offer a solution. So you have that skill or that ability to do it. And that's probably why, what you call individualized issues such as being a lawyer, being a doctor cannot be inherited, because it is skill-based. You can't, your son cannot take over your law practice. It has to be another lawyer, or being a doctor or something like that. Maybe it revolves then around this aspect of skill, the ability to perform a certain physical or mental task.
Exactly. The skill that you gain. Thank you for putting it up so well. Okay. So knowledge is information a person has in a specific content area. You have information in the area of law, medicine, engineering, HR, marketing, the knowledge that you acquire. And how do you acquire that knowledge? Knowledge is acquired through many, many aspects of what it is. Someone else would like to see how knowledge is acquired? Faith, Sharon, maybe you can read and let us know. Anyone? Anyone would like to read and just explain it? Knowledge, seed knowledge, inherited knowledge, for us to be able to see how that is going and how that can be acquired. You go to school to acquire knowledge. You go for short classes, short courses to acquire knowledge. You also go to the internet to acquire knowledge. And that knowledge, then you get the principles of that career. And that career, you are able to do what? Progressively make a living out of it as you go by. And as we had discussed earlier, this knowledge that you gain is in a place where sometimes it's easy for you. You follow your passion, and you can be able to excel in it, compared to where your parents or guardians make a decision. This is what you need to follow. You don't follow it as passionately as you would if it was really coming out of you. So that is important from the very beginning, even as maybe we are parents here, to guide our children in areas that they can easily excel in, they have passion in, because you can always make a living out of the passion that you have. And if you have the principles and the knowledge, then it's no brainer. You're able to navigate yourself in this world. The world owes you nothing. The world owes you only an opportunity. And that we've already seen a lot. Self-concept, a person's attitude, values, and self-image. What do people say about you? We're not in the room. Your brand. What brand have you created? There are some people's brands who are very high and very well regarded in the market. When we say their name, you can be able to relate with them. From the professional industry captains to the political space, you can be able to say that this person can hold their own. They are an authority in that area. Apart from that, you can see that their attitude, the values, their self-image, they are well put together. At least some politicians who we all know that their attitude and their values and their self-image is not what we would like to see. But we are talking about people whom you have seen, and think of even you as a person, your brand, your area of influence. What are the attitudes that you have? What are the values that you have created for yourself? What is the self-image that people talk about you? And that is very important for you to be able to see exactly what needs to be done, the brand image that you have built for yourself, the inherent things that you know. If it's going to be this, I am not for this. And people will know. If you tell this to Catherine, Catherine will not agree to it. If you tell Catherine this, Catherine will buy into it. You know, so that is important. And it can be like, I'm sure, ukataka short, uliza Catherine, maybe that's how people, and they can, birds of the same feather flock together, and they can come and say, iyo Catherine akisikia, atakubali, huyo, wachana na yeye, tuendelee kutafuta mtu mwingine. So your self-image of how you've created and what people know you as is very important. Part of the competencies for you to be able to perform. The traits will go higher. Physical characteristics and consistency response to situations or information. This I like just driving it as a completer, finisher person. You are consistent. Your physical characteristics talk about your capability, and we are not talking physical characteristics. It's not how you look, tall, slim, big, whatever it is. The physical, the brand image that you have built for yourself, the consistency to respond to questions that have been asked, projects that have been given to you, situations where you are called upon to be able to reference and to do what needs to be done, the kind of information that is required. So the traits, the physical characteristics, the consistency that you have as an individual, and your ability to perform in any given situation or the information that is required makes you, people know that you are a complete finisher. And the last one is motives. Motives, things about which a person consistently thinks about or wants, and what, which causes the action. Motives drive, direct, and select behaviors towards certain actions or goals or away from others. What is my motive? What's your motive working in that organization that you work with? You know, persistency, one of it. Motives, what drives me to do what I do every morning? Does it reach Sunday evening and you're just thinking, not good? Not good. Or what's your motive? Is it to drive the organization to the next level? Or is it just to make sure that I'm always the one who is always pushing people under the bus, you know, to get ahead of them or to bring down the organization? People's motives and behaviors. And over time, people just see how your motives, what your motives are, and you'll be able to be labeled as that. So for you to be able to perform these 5 competencies are required, and there are many more things you can put, like what we have the skills that you need, the knowledge that you need, the self-concept that you have about yourself and others have about you, the traits, the behaviors that people really see, and the motives of why you do what you do and how it gets to that. Okay. Well, we are almost to the tail end of it. Let's go to talent management. Other competencies of talent management include the following. What is talent management? Talent management is the ability to bring people to the organization and develop their talent. First, they already got that, but improving that talent as they stay in the organization. So we can be able to do that through competency-based career planning, career training and development, performance management, and assessment and rating. You know, how do I develop talent in my organization? And you can actually look into this and tick one by one that you have a career plan for people. You have training and development, performance management, and you're also able to assess and rate those people. But we want now to infuse it with the competencies that we have been talking about. Okay. So career planning, we can look at many other things to do is a career plan, path design, analyzing the employee's future plans, implementation of development programs. This actually is interesting because many questions from interview panels, which I think is a genuine and a good question, is what are your future career plans? Why do we ask that question so many times? What are your future plans? Why do we ask that question? Well, it's just because it's a good question to ask. We've had it so many times, so we think it's fancy to ask that question. Anyone would like to share? Someone who's not spoken throughout this webinar? Let's try and learn from each other. I'm sure we will ask that so that we can see whether we're able to accommodate the plans for this individual who has potential of joining us. And if they join us and they take us into to task of saying, when during the interview, ask me what are my career plans, and you say those are things that we do in our organization, they can take you to task and say, it's time. Where do you see that? And come and say, yes, indeed, it's time. We are looking at it and we are addressing some of the gaps that you have, and let's forge forward. That employee will definitely want to stay with you for a long time. So what is career path? Career path is a series of positions that one must go through in order to achieve a certain position in the organization. The path is based on position, competency profile of that employee must have to be able to hold a certain position. The competencies that we have been talking about and giving examples on. Defining career plan, analyzing the position or job based on the competency required, competency profile, functional or managerial. You remember they could be functional or managerial competencies. Categorizing the position that requires similar competencies into one job family, categorizing the person into that job family. We do understand job families, and I will not take it that all of us do. So grouping job families together, job families could be job families in HR or support, could be one job family because they interrelate very closely with each other. And then the technical jobs would be another job family because they interrelate very closely with each other. A job family would be like HR and administration could be one job family. Identifying career paths based on the job family. Career path could be vertical, horizontal, diagonal, and there could be some mandatory trainings that you need to get into for you to be able to move forward. Any question there as we move forward? Okay. So assessing the employee career plan, employee career needs, and the organizational needs. And we must have a match between these. But sometimes there's such a big disconnect. And that big disconnect is what we want to address today in terms of ensuring that it is not too disconnected. Because remember what I said from the very beginning, let's have bespoke ways of supporting employees. Know what really Catherine wants. Know how bespoke we are supposed to tailor-make some of these requirements that Catherine needs to develop for the good of herself because she is capable of holding that position, but in turn, it will support the strategy of the organization. So employee career needs, assessment of the career type of the employee, assessment of the employee competencies level through an assessment center. You can send people to an assessment center, or if you have developed your competency frameworks, you'll be able to pick that. And through continuous observation, continuous feedback, being honest and come and say, well, I feel that I'm struggling in the area of negotiation, for example. And you say, yes, we can actually see it. Let's support you in that. So organizational needs assessment of the competency profiles required for each position in the organization, assessment of the organizational needs for manpower. So there are two areas for us to even to develop those competencies for the organization, fair enough. But how many people do we need to be able to perform this job? So that comes out very clearly when you use tools to help you do that, because we can't say we are 1,000 people in the organization and we've got only 5 HR people. pushing the agenda, isn't it? They might be overwhelmed with work, or we run a factory and our core products, we know that for us to produce 10,000 biros, we will need 8 people to do so, but we decide, 4 people because it's machine-based. No, you might come from loading the product into the boilers and stuff like that. So the value chain. So it means that there is a place where we are combining 2 jobs or whatever because you want to save on cost. We must also think about the people who work there. We cannot be saying we are so heavily looking at developing people, but also not ideally optimizing the organization. Those two have to go hand in hand as we do that. Competency-based career planning, employee development programs, employee career needs and organizational needs. So developing programs and intervention, special assignments, we do that all the time. Executive development programs, we can mentor and coach people. We can have apprenticeship in other companies where maybe you have groups of companies and we can send someone there. It's not sending someone to your competition. They won't agree for that. On job development, job enrichment, workshops like what we are doing today, presentation assignments and desk studies. So we've got many ways to develop people internally in the organization so that we match the employee career needs and the organizational career needs. Any question until there? Seem to be talking a lot. I need help on people unpacking and seeing, asking question. Is that something that you would want to do in the organization? Okay. Remember this, we are all talking about talent and how to develop talent in a competency-based framework. So competency-based training framework, yes, Catherine? Catherine, okay, you've raised down your hand. So,
okay. Sorry, I just wanted to ask this question. You asked a question about this big question that we always ask, which seems to be just part of the many questions that you need to ask in an interview panel. Where do you want to go from here? You know, your career plan. I've not seen the organizational chart of the organization, and I am top of the range. Two scenarios. So unajua hapa, you say that I want to be the CEO. Okay. The CEO ni mtoto wa boss. Yani amekuja tu take over from Canada where they finished their career. They start looking at you from a different perspective because people are not prepared for this question. And then there is also the level 2 kind of a person who is a Gen Z. Now, Gen Zs believe that they shouldn't work for an organization for too long. It's not good for them. That is how they are inculcated from campus. That when you go there, you give yourself 2 years, you've learned everything about the organization. It's no longer romantic to work there. You know, they view what you can do, and you don't even feel, even if they make you the CEO, you are going to add value. You are bored. You know, everything has come to a standstill for you. So you are not growing because there's personal growth aspect of people. So when you ask this question for someone who is going to an interview, in your case, what would be the best answer?
I think first and foremost, and I would like to hear what others have to say. First and foremost, if you genuinely don't have a career plan in your organization, don't ask that question. Strike it out. It's redundant and it's misleading and it's unfair to the candidate and to you guys as a panel, because they might come and say, oh, okay, fine. Oh, I'll make my decision of joining this company because of what I have done. I have had. And many times is when we think that because we have a training budget, whether big, small, or whatever we want to say, that is big enough to develop people's career. It could be, but career planning from the time I say I am coming in as a cashier and I want to end up as the CFO, you have outlined how I can get to a CFO. I might not be the CFO, but I know there's a possibility of me becoming a CFO because there's a very clear structured way of doing things in this organization. If you don't have that, then just say that that question is redundant for you. But you also want to find out people's ambitions and plans. So that question still becomes important for you to know that the people I'm employing in this company will demand certain things and they want to grow their careers in this space. So you take that advantage and start looking into how talent management in the organization, like now, the session that we are in now. If you know that is not going to work, you leave it out completely and say, we train people from time to time. We've got a training budget. And again, we also be brave enough as HR practitioners here to know that we need to train people for Africa. I keep saying that. Don't shy away and be so selfish just training for your organization. If people leave and you have trained them well, we get a better, the ecosystem becomes better in where we operate. We become better leaders, functional and managerial. So don't shy away from developing people, knowing that maybe one day they will leave you. Fair enough. Might have a bond to let them stay for much longer. The Gen Z are a special case, and that's why we need to look at incentivizing them through compensation, which they are very high on. Are we able to make tailor-made benefits just for that person? They can come and say, medical is not important for me. I don't see it now. I would like to be involved in doing my master's and take that aspect there. You have to be a bit more agile in terms of managing this Gen Z because they're the majority of what we have in the market. But also at the recruitment stage, we need to set up expectations, which now have a psychological impact and meeting of minds around the recruitment process. How long do you expect to stay? You seem to be staying for 2 hours, 2 years in every position. Why is there a reason? If they tell you I stay for 2 years because of XYZ, I want to experience and get more out of my career and more money and stuff like that, are you able to see what can I get out of this employee if they've got the right competencies, the right skills, the right knowledge, and everything that you want to bring them on board? Would you bring them on board? So it's very individualized to every organization. We have different types of organizations. We have big Fortune 500 companies. We've got smaller companies. We've got individuals who own companies, and this will not fly for them. My son has come from Canada. He's the CFO. He's the new CEO. It's our business. If you don't like it, you can as well go. But also, there's a lot of change around SMEs who want to be seen that they are doing the right thing. But different situations will also call for how you try to support as HR in that organization. If it's an SME that is very family oriented, they don't want to change, it's hard. We are not saying you leave work, but we are just trying to say that when you are there, what can you do to improve the situation that is at hand and you can do better? You leave a legacy. That's what I'm trying to say. In government, things are already defined. This is how we do things. There's a lot of changes in the government, in non-governmental organizations. So we are talking of various industries and where you find yourself working. I think the most important thing, and I like to emphasize, is your recruitment process. The questions that you ask, you're looking for that one big fit, looking back at your organization and saying, will we be able to afford this person based on what they are saying? Not just the monetary aspect, but also the kind of work. Is it going to be challenging and interesting enough for them? How are we going to make them stay so that we also benefit from their expertise? Okay, that's what I would say, Catherine. Anybody else would like to weigh in? Anybody else? We are many here. I've not had many of you speak today. And it's not cold, the weather is looking up today. So competency-based development training framework, we all know, current level, competency level of the employee. We identify the competency gap. We do a competency assessment internally or externally, and then required competency level for a certain position, and we make sure that we develop a training program for them. So these are the kind of tools that you can use. I will not go through them, but they are there, like you see training and development manager. What are some of the competencies that they need? They need communication skills, public speaking, leadership. Where are they, and what is the required level for each of these competencies? And you can be able maybe to map it up and say, in public speaking, they really need to be at level 5. In material development, they need to be at a level 5. And then when you come to a recruitment supervisor, interviewing skill is a big one, and they need to be at level 5. Keep developing until that they are there. So you're able to put in criteria to know when you're at level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5. Okay. So competency profile per person, leadership, and you now look at where they are, each person, and you can use this kind of a tool to be able to look into it. These are just examples of tools that you can use for you to be able to pick up the competency profiles for each person, for each position, which translate to a person holding that competence. Okay. So individual performance elements, after those tools, so we are looking at individual performance element has 2 main categories. The first one is performance results and competencies, hard or quantitative aspects of the performance, the results, the performance results, the real hard, the hard objectives that I like to call them. Then the second one is the competencies represents the soft or qualitative, the observable ones that we have talked about. So that those are the 2 elements that we need to make sure that the individual is performing on. Then the performance results score and the competency scores, and then you get an overall score, will determine the employee's career movement and also rewards as it's earned. And that's what we do. You look at all the objectives, that how they have met them, and then have a final score. Above average, below average, exemplary, and after that you do what? You reward based on how someone has performed. And this is always a thorny area. How much bonus am I going to earn? So I'm above standard performer, good. And then all of a sudden, we go for the calibration or for moderation of the results, and sometimes it can be marked down. And people say, but this is the final result that my supervisor gave me. How come it has been downgraded? I think that's unfair to someone. If the final score is what it is, then what we can do, and I've always talked about that in management, is to look at the bonus pot. If the bonus pot is small, then we share it adequately depending on how people have performed. But don't downgrade people so that to fit into the budget that we have. Everybody must be rewarded based on merit. Because if you are going to work so much looking at the results that everybody has been able to achieve, let's also then do what? Remunerate. If last year above target people were getting 100,000, this year the people have improved, and it means that we need to lower the amount. Go back and say we had more. The budget for bonus had already been set. We had more people improving in the business. Well done, everybody. However, it also meant that we need to share the cake or the pie appropriately or proportionately, not appropriately. And it meant that everybody now on above average needed to whatever. And it cascades down. The people in standard, the people below, of course, they won't get, but it's actually well defined, and you can be able to explain on that. Anybody who has had such a scenario of how to bonus came, the pot was not enough, and you wondered what to do? That's what I have done in the past, or that's what I have advised. So these are some of the other tools that we can also use in terms of competency-based management element, performance results. how do we do that? And sometimes I catch myself and say, not everybody has had the opportunity to do this. So that's why we like to reference and to know that in these webinars, we'll meet people who are already very well seasoned in their career, some people who are just starting off. So it's important to show the tools and to be able to outline them and unpack them so that there's full understanding. And that's why I say, keep at it. Let's share our experiences, whether it's at a junior level, whether it's at a senior level, so that we know also whom we can reach out to in these webinars. It's good for us to be able to create those kind of networks, even virtually. So element 1 is the performance results, and the main performance targets are there and targets to be achieved. How will we know that you are achieving the target? So conduct assessment of the employee performance could be a main target for you. And the target to be achieved is all employees submit their performance assessment forms on time. Let's say they should all be in by the 30th of August. That's the deadline. Then you're able to say, I achieved it 100%. I sent out the information in good time. I kept reminding people that they need to do that. And at the end of it all, this is what I've been able to achieve. So you have a 100% score. If only 50% have come in, you need to find out why. But your target was all the firms to be in by 28th of August. You've only got 50%. You don't meet that target. So another target would be improve the systems for performance assessment, completed 100% by a certain date. So this is how it is. Then you're able now to quantify. It's really quantifiable. There's no, the data is speaking for itself. There could be circumstances where the business shifts completely because of certain dynamics, external dynamics, internal dynamics. So we need to review the performance results. Take a case of COVID. Even when we had made all the plans that year, we needed to readjust them. Many companies readjusted them, either downwards or upwards, depending on the industry that you are in, to be able to fit into the times of COVID. And not to be unfair. If you stuck to the same performance results, targets, then and evaluated them based on that, then you miss the point of encouraging and motivating people and making adjustments to that, and they can feel demotivated. So we can also make sure that we standardize the way we do the assessment competencies through an assessment center. The assessment centers, many multinationals will send people for this, and some people also doing it in-house. They have the tools to be able to do that. A standardized evaluation of behavior based on multiple inputs, multiple trained observers and techniques are used. Judgments about behaviors are made in major part from specific development assessment simulations, and these judgments are pulled in a meeting among the assessors or by the statisticians' integrated results. So some companies will say, let's take everybody to an assessment center so that we know what gaps are there and to standardize them so that everybody has that results. And then we come back and say, how are we going to support you in the things or the results that we have achieved? Of course, this calls for money. It's capital. It has a budgetary aspect. Not to say it's just another level of you trying to make sure that your competency frameworks or systems are working ideally. So assessment center in basket exercise or role simulation, entries or baskets involve working with the contents of manager's entry, which typically consists of letters, what is your day-to-day work, and people to see and observe how you pull out that work. Role simulation is what it actually just says. In a role play, you are given a particular role to assume for a certain task. The task will involve dealing with the role player in a certain way, and there will be an assessor watching you in role play. We see that also in recruitment, where you put people, the candidates, and give them a task or an assignment or a challenge, and you see and you observe, you have a criteria: teamwork, listening skills, ability to collaborate. You assess them based on observation, and you have an objective panel who really observes, and then after that you make those conclusions based on what you saw. Presentations, you may require them to make a formal presentation on a number of assessors, and fact-finding exercise. In the fact-finding exercise, you may be asked to research a decision starting from only partial knowledge. Research, go out, find out, to look at how critically you think your research methodologies, and to be able to come up with a solution that is befitting for them. And finally, at the assessment center is the group discussion. Group exercises are time discussions, where a group of participants work together. This is very well referenced even at the workplace, where you have brainstorming sessions where we say, let's have a group to discuss this project. People of this like-minded, you can call people from various departments and you have a discussion. So at the assessment center is the same thing, where you call people for a discussion and look for how you participate in a team, and make those kind of conclusions, okay? For competency-based rating, we say results of observation through the assessment center, and then the competency scores, okay? So that's the same one, and I would like you to just go back if there are any questions. What we were outlining in this session is the talent management, and how do we develop talent within an organization that is really competency-based. So we looked at the career planning, the training and development, how we develop people, what gaps we pick. If you are going to use an assessment center, performance management, we look at some of the tools in terms of the objectives that need to be done, and then the assessment centers and the ratings that can be looked into. So just in case you had forgotten why it was there. So let's look at how we shape behavior and managing culture in an organization. Just a few more slides for us to be able to finish, and I'll open up the session for plenary for questions and answers. So well-formulated HR policies set the basic rules for management of personnel. We all know that. Why do we have policies? To standardize the processes, to ensure equity and fairness in an organization, so that one person does not get preferential treatment from the other person. If we see things changing from time to time and people are saying this needs to be implemented, then we can do a survey and make sure that we incorporate those or revise a certain policy. The rules define the psychology, core values, and principles on which managers should act when dealing with HR issues. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all issues and aspects related to HR are addressed in a coherent way, and at the same time are in compliance with the values and principles defined by the administration. Administration could also be the various regulators that you work in within your industry. So that needs to be done. So policies are the one thing that really shape the behavior and managing culture in an organization. And the HR policies are actually the ones, because they actually touch on people and inform on people's behaviors and how people behave in an organization. Those policies should be done in line and in reference to how we want people treated in the organization. So they inform, and they should be well articulated, and we should listen to people as we are making the policies, because they shape the culture of the organization. Other interventions for shaping behavior and managing culture include comprehensive induction process, staff training and development, competency development, which has been the whole area of what we have discussed this morning, conducting culture audits, the surveys. When's the last time you did an engagement survey for you to know? Embedding the culture values of cultural values, inculcating a culture of learning and innovative, focused on the individual, collective, and organizational performance, fostering a culture of integration, intergenerational cooperation. We've just heard that we are working across various generations, the older generation, Gen Z, and before that there was this generation, what were we calling it? The millennials. and institutionalizing competency-based human resource management systems at all levels in the organization. You can see that I have been very keen to make sure that we bold this, because this is our last slide in terms of how do we shape behavior and manage culture in an organization through policy formulation, and what other interventions can we bring along the way. But also knowing that is also being strong role models of playing out our values, our beliefs, our traditions, and the top sets the tone coming all the way down, and then asking for feedback from time to time that informs how our culture is shaping our behavior. And then also making sure that we can have competency-based HR management systems at all levels in the organization, from the top to the bottom, from every department, because it's people who hold those jobs, and holding those jobs will require that we look at individuals and the competencies they don't have, the skills that need to be acquired, which lead to the competencies, and bring them back to work through observation, through having conversations, through putting them as part of targets, and we will be able to have a better organization. That marks the end of our training, of our seminar. I open it up now to questions and to any answers, questions and answers that you may have, and I'm happy to take any feedback as well. Back to plenary. Back to plenary for questions and answers, feedback, anything new that you are taking away. Was it informative? Silence can be a bit worrying. Before I give it back to Dan for any final remarks, anyone would like to say something?
Good morning, Catherine.
Morning, Caroline.
Thank you for that presentation. And it's not that we are very quiet, we are listening.
That's
Just
good to hear.
wanted to add something about the generation gaps. It is true that we are all wired differently, but what I've realized now that they are not staying for too long. What I've been telling managers is immediately a staff joins, even if it is an intern, pump as much information as you can on the job training, engage them as much as possible, and let them get involved in routines instead of giving them small tasks. Give them the whole hog and then work with them. Then that way they are less bored and they are more engaged. And I've seen that even if you have someone for 1 year or 2 years, you're able to use their capacity much more. So don't leave them to do routine things for too long, and then you give them an assignment, then you don't have to talk to them again. They want engagement all the time. Then also about their career plans, it doesn't really matter for you about their career plans if they are not fired up, but since they are there, work with them and see what interests them within those roles that you are giving them, even though they are not interested in those roles. That's what I've seen with them. Yeah. So not to worry too much and not to stereotype them too much.
It's
because
true.
Out of every 10, you'll find you get one very good one who does not portray those what we have generalized about them, and they are able to give you the best and grow that competence to another level. So sometimes they can surprise you, and they make very good leaders sometimes.
Yeah. I think the generalization is what many people we dwell on, not many people we dwell on. We should not be the case. I think every individual has their strengths, and we need to capitalize on those strengths. Working across various generations, just because our generation did this and we didn't do that. Times have changed. We more so right now the big word in everybody's conversation is the ability to have mindset. We shift our minds to think about, incorporating everybody. If you want to see success, we must have a mind shift in what we are doing. So thank you, Caroline, for emphasizing that. Someone is asking, is an assessment center an organization, or is it the HR who designs within the organization? So thank you for that question. There are many assessment centers that really just do focus on getting to assess someone's capability. It's an assessment center. You go, especially it's very, very well informed, like in developed countries in Europe and America and stuff like that. You go to an assessment center and you get assessed. But internally, what I have seen many organizations do is have their own tools, which really have very well set out criteria in terms of what they want to assess. So it's the tools. You can go to an assessment center, walk in physically and do that. I know a couple of them in Kenya, which will give you an opportunity to do various assessments. And then after that, they will interpret them for you. Okay, great. Thank you. Dan has put some information on the upcoming trainings that we have. I'm sure that you also plugged into various social platforms of ACHRP so that you don't miss out on any trainings that you would like to attend. I know there is the 10th annual symposium. Well done, ACHRP, for hosting the 10th HR symposium, which will be held in Nakuru. So I hope many of you have registered, or if you have missed any of the webinars that have been run, there is an offer that is now going round in terms of you can engage at your own free time to make sure that you're also learning, but also at the same time you're meeting your CPD points requirements. So that's all from me. I've really enjoyed facilitating this webinar. Thank you everyone for turning up. I know it's a Saturday, every one of us is busy, but just coming to learn and to share our insights is really what makes it worthwhile. So for me is say that God bless you all and hope to see you next time. Bye for now.